Welcome to Carry the Mat, where we pursue meaning in life, legacy, and leadership. Join us as we seek to learn some of life's most difficult yet valuable hard-earned lessons from men and women who have experienced obstacles and victories firsthand, striving to serve one another based on our unique, God-given abilities, not interested in merely talking about it, but determined to be about it. If that sounds like you, then let's carry the mat together. Every man dies, but not every man truly lives. Now to your hosts, Ben Brandenburg and Daniel Moss. This is Carry the Mat.
All right, guys, welcome in to Carry the Mat. I'm Ben, this is Daniel, and today we've got the pleasure of sitting down with my friend and a staple in Nashville songwriting scene, Cole Taylor. Cole Taylor's a native Georgia guy from Southwest Georgia, and we're going to kind of talk to him about not just the songwriting game, but also just him growing up in Georgia. We'll talk a little bit about songs he's written, artists he's worked with, and we're excited to have him today. And I just want to kick things off by saying congrats, Cole, on your latest number one, You, Me, and Whiskey. Justin Moore and Priscilla Block, congrats on that, man.
Thank you, buddy. Hey, thank you guys for having me. Anytime anybody invites me to talk, this is a pleasure. But BB, I love you, buddy. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, me and Elizabeth were on the way here to set up for today's podcast, and we were given that song a listen. Man, it's well done. I mean,
thank you, buddy. It means a lot.
Seems like you're hitting all the right strides in that industry, and that's awesome.
We're trying to. How are you guys doing?
We're good, man. Just got done with church, and a storm just rolled through here. I know you're in Nashville. It's funny, when we were texting, we were kind of going through times, and I was like Eastern, and then you were like Central, and I was like, we're only a 1 hour difference, but I was making sure I was on the right time. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But you just got off the golf course, and we want to hear about your business a little bit later in the conversation that you've got that y'all started, and the playing through business, but. Yeah, let's just start off with that. The emotions that you had hearing about that number one. I want to get into your background in Georgia, but right off the bat, talk a little bit about that song in particular and how that came to be. Who'd you write it with, and all that?
Man, this morning, we knew we had a shot at being number one, and this morning I got the text from my publisher, Rusty Gaston and Taylor Lamb, and just congrats, you have the number one song. And we knew we had a shot at it this week, and we knew that this song was a hit when we started out. But this morning was one of a kind. My wife and I, we've been praying for number ones since we moved to town. And thank God this has been our third one. I've had a lot of success on the radio charts, but this is my third number one. Thank God for all of it.
That's a casual text message to get on a Sunday morning.
It's not a casual one, buddy. I wish it was casual.
Man, it's got to be rewarding to write a number one with a new artist that you haven't had. Maybe you can tell us if you've had any cuts with Justin, but it's pretty cool that it's with a new artist. I think whether it was Cole Swindell or Luke Bryan or Florida Georgia Line, that would have been great. But to do it with a new artist, I think that's got to be extra special.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you get number one, it's super special. And I always tell people, anytime you get anything that happens in the music industry, it's nothing but a God thing. It's like God gives us this craft, and if you don't know how to accept that God gives you, and you appreciate God giving it to you, today I literally woke up and prayed. I said, thank you, God, because this is unbelievable.
Just to give the listeners kind of an idea, can you talk a little bit about the grind that goes into obviously you're in a position now where you've got doors that are open and you have contacts, but talk a little bit about the drive and the work that goes into getting to where you're able to have that happen.
I mean, it's a song every day. I always tell people you have to get through the bad songs to get through great songs. And then you find your spot in between, and you find your good songs, and you find your great songs, and you find your bad songs. And sometimes your bad songs are great songs. Sometimes your great songs are bad songs. But you have to show up every day to write and to find what song that's going to be for you. And I mean, I write 250 songs a year.
Man, I'm sure that comes as a surprise, thinking some of the ones that you thought were file 13 turned out to be some of your better songs, and then vice versa. I mean, but ones like this one, I mean, where you knew you had something right off the bat. I mean, it's got to be that when you're in the room, I'm sure that emotion of just knowing that you've got something special. I'm sure and there's probably times, I mean, tell us if I'm wrong, but there's probably times where you think you've kind of created that magic, and for whatever reason, whether it's timing or something like that. Talk us through that, the emotions of thinking, man, that's a smash, and then turns out nothing happens with it. That's got to be frustrating cycle.
No, you're absolutely right. There's some times where I'm like, oh, that's smash, and nobody else thinks it's smash. And then there's some times that I think, oh, that's the worst song I've ever written. And then people are like, oh, that's smash. So, honestly, music is opinionated. So, you never know whose opinion is going to matter in that moment.
Yeah. Well, that song that's the current number one song in the land kind of has that back and forth similar to that Luke Bryan song back in the day. Alone Tonight, Home Alone Tonight. I mean, that to me, when I heard it, I was like, man, it's got Cole written all over it. Just that back and forth. Did you know it was a duet right when you guys were writing it?
Yeah, Jesse, Brock, and I showed up that morning and said, hey, let's write a duet and let's make it cool. You know, Jesse had just had Never Say Never, and Brock had just had What Happened in a Small Town, and I had Home Alone Tonight. So it's like we all know how a Spanish duet goes. So we show up, right? Brock and I had this idea, you, me, and Whiskey. I called Jesse about it. Hey, let's write a duet called You, Me, and Whiskey. Jesse's idea was let's make it about a married couple, and we did that. It's just unbelievable. God is so good about making things fall into place, and it's unbelievable.
Was your first number one that Luke Bryan song, or was it Florida Georgia Line? Which one?
Yeah,
was
Florida
first?
Georgia Line.
Okay. Now I know. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you've told this story before. But tell us about getting that call from Luke on Home Alone Tonight, and I believe you were hunting. And can you tell that story for us?
I don't know. So my hunting one was Florida Georgia Line.
Okay. I thought Luke had called you or something.
No, Luke called me when we were landing from my honeymoon.
Okay, go ahead.
That's what I tell. But when I was hunting, my co-writer Matt Braxton called me turkey hunting, and he said, "Man, hey, Florida Georgia Line wants to record our song." And I'm like, "All right." And sure enough, I always tell everybody. Sure enough, they recorded this song. This is my first number one. It was called "Sipping on Fire," which I am still very grateful for to this day. That song changed my life. It changed my family's life. And then the Luke Bryan thing, which you were thinking about, me and my wife were landing from the honeymoon, and I get this call from a 615 number I didn't. We're landing, literally, as the plane's landing. I say, hello. And I hear, hey, what you doing? And that's my Luke Bryan voice.
Oh, God.
And I always tell people, this story would be great if this was a love song. But this is a song about hooking up with somebody at a bar, sending a picture to their exes, and they're not going home on the night. So both of those stories, my first two number one, happened, and they were completely separate from what my life was. But now Yumi and Whiskey and my wife and I know this song and love this song.
Yeah, it's a great song. It's a great tune. Man, I guess take us back to growing up in Georgia, in Southwest Georgia. And, take us through growing up and just your how'd you get into music? What made you want to move to Nashville? Kind of paint the picture for us of what it meant to you to say, hey, I'm going to go try my luck in Nashville. I know you were an artist. You can kind of take us through all those years, all the way up into 4-wheel drive days, and then also getting your start.
Man, growing up in Georgia for me was sports. So I was a big baseball player, football player, golfer. But then somewhere around 14, I picked up a guitar, started playing the little county festival, and just touring around. I'd play all the festivals growing up, playing church, sing the new Josh Turner song that was out, Long Black Train, and then go to college. I figured out you could make money playing at the bars. So I learned to play guitar a lot more than I knew. Guitar wasn't a thing for me growing up. Like, music wasn't a thing. I just knew I loved to sing. And people in church told me that I was halfway decent. I didn't believe them. And just then I got to college and I started building this following of writing my own songs, playing other people's songs. People wanted to hear me sing. So I got through 3 years of that, and then I met Cole Swindell. Cole Swindell was like, hey, you need to move to Nashville. And you need to do, if you want to be in the game, got that backwards. If you want to win the game, you need to be in the game. So I knew then I had to be in Nashville. And I moved to Nashville, and the rest is not history yet, but I hope it will be one day.
Where'd you go to college?
Valdosta State.
Okay, all right. That's
It's a grad student.
yeah. That's doing my graduate program at Valdosta right now. So
Go Blazers!
go Blazers, man.
Yeah.
That's great. Just a quick question. I know Ben had mentioned it to me earlier, but you're from Cuthbert, Georgia.
Yep.
So it's like a mile long before you're out of Cuthbert into Blakely. What did you do for fun outside of hunting? Like, if you are in Cuthbert, is Dothan the place to go? Like,
Nah, man. I mean, my hometown is the cliche of hometowns. We went to the creek. We had bonfire parties. We rode dirt roads. It's literally in Nashville. I tell them about all this stuff, and they're like, "Oh man, that's cliche. That's cliche." But my hometown is what every country song is about.
I'm very familiar with Cuthbert. I've been down to Blakely a million times in the past, and that's just, not every day you hear someone say you're from Cuthbert, Georgia.
I love that town. They thought so much of me to put a mural up there of me.
That's awesome, man.
And it's pretty crazy. Every time I drive around the square and see a picture of myself. It's crazy how good God is.
That's what Daniel has at Aquinas at his high school. They
Oh, yeah.
retired his number.
Yeah.
No. Man, I mean, tell me about your dad's business. I love texting, trail cam pictures with you, and you obviously know how to size up a deer. And tell me about your dad's business and what it was like growing up with that being the family business.
Man, my dad started his processing business when he was 17 years old. He was in the meat business. He was the butcher at the local grocery store when he was 17. And he started his own processing. And now it's grown into this big, I mean, he's doing 3,000 deer a year. So 3,000 deer in Cuthbert, Georgia is unbelievable. I mean, you think about 3,000 of anything in one city that small. That's a lot. But then you think about the deer. And that's a quarter of the population of deer there.
That's nuts. I mean,
Yeah.
Is that the only, is that like all that they do in that butcher
All he
shop?
does. And then he has a taxidermy, which is about 10%. So 10% of the deer that come in are about the mounts.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There's a lot of big deer down in that part of Georgia.
Yeah, there's more deer than there are people.
All the peanuts and soybeans. There's plenty of protein to go around.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I mean, made me think about this when you were mentioning Cole Swindell, but it had to be encouraging, I guess, for you. I mean, obviously the relationship with Cole, but to see guys like him and Luke Bryan have a taste of success, I'm thinking that was probably before your start. You know what I'm saying? How encouraging was it to see guys from South Georgia that were up there doing it? And what were those relationships like today? And how did that kind of give you just affirmation, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Seeing people from my part of Georgia, like seeing people 30 minutes down the road, 40 minutes down the road, do what I want to do is the most encouraging thing. I mean, I think about if I didn't see them, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at now. So, and that's a tender subject now that you brought it up.
It's got to be a shot of confidence. Yeah, it's got to be a shot of confidence, and just their legacy is tied to you.
I'm thinking, if I never saw that, would I even be here? I could be still studying accounting at Valdosta, accounting major, and just not care about any of it. You know what I mean?
And I think, honestly, man, to that point, I think that's almost anything in life. I mean, where you go in life is built off connection. You know,
Yep.
So I mean, it's good and a blessing from God that the cards played out the way they did for you, and you were able to make those connections. But I mean, you see that in all industries. I mean, it's kind of not. It's hard. I mean, controversial thing, but it's not what you know; it's who you know.
Yeah, but then it's not even that. It's like being a kid in South Georgia, and you see somebody 30 minutes down the road that has made it that in country music, that gives you the courage to move up to Nashville.
So is that Cole's from down there?
So me, Cole, Dallas Davidson, Luke Bryan, Kit Moore, we're all in a little corner of South Georgia. 30 minutes. Alan Jackson, which I grew up on Alan Jackson. So you hear about somebody from down there doing it, and you're like, oh, that's a possibility.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, he made that quote you mentioned when we started about being in the game. I mean, you had the guts though to move, to drop everything and move up there. I think that's credit to you for taking a leap of faith and trusting yourself, betting on yourself. And I mean, I'm sure you, like everybody in that town, has been told no before, and just not learning how to just roll with that, and just a game of timing too, but also just trusting yourself enough to make that drive and pack up your truck and move up there. I think is a credit to you, and just to get in the space and develop that confidence.
I think it's more credit to God and more credit to my parents to give me the confidence to move. God to give me the confidence, my parents to give me like my dad, when I told him I wanted to move, he said, all right, I'll give you 4 months. You save up as much money as you can. I'll match it and you can move. So I thank God every day for the parents I have to give me that ability. Because, some parents would be absolutely not. You're not doing that.
Risk reward.
I thank God every day for the passion in my heart and for the parents that I have that gave me the opportunity, that didn't shut me down. And then when I moved, my parents were like, hey, hope you do good. I'm going to match you. Here you go. And go for it. And I thank God every day for it.
What when you made the move, were you on your own, or were you with your wife at the time, or
it was me and my
what was that like?
Which is my wife now.
And that's got to just be a daunting situation, going from small town South Georgia, and then next thing you know, you're in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah. So my wife, I told my girlfriend then, wife now, I said, hey, I'm going to move to Nashville, and I hope you can come with me. And she was ready. She moved here a day before me, actually. She was like, I'm ready to go. Let's go.
That's awesome, man. You got a good partner by your side.
I'm going to tell you what, life is nothing if you don't have a good partner.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a good word. Yeah, man. So you get to Nashville, and I love going to songwriters rounds and just hearing the artists that write the songs. And when you hear one of your songs, stylistically, you can hear. When I hear one of your songs, I hear almost you singing it, because just the way you roll your verses and the style that kind of made you. I mentioned it earlier. The similarities I see in the single that's out right now to one of your first number ones.
Yeah.
What is it like going from an artist to exclusively a songwriter, and how did that kind of go for you? Because I know you had some good songs on Highway FM and all that, or XM radio and all that good stuff. But when did those dreams kind of shift for you, from being an artist and to going exclusively, okay, I want to just exclusively work on songwriting, making a living with this?
Man, it was 2016, I think. 2016, 2017. I was obviously touring with Cole Swindell, Chase Price. That's when we met in the beginning. And there was something that switched in me that I don't know. I was having trouble doing the artist thing, songwriter thing every day. It felt like I was splitting myself in half, and I was giving 50% to artist, 50% to songwriter. And I prayed really hard about it November 16th of whatever year, 17. And I was praying really hard. I said, God, you got to let me know, please, if I'm a songwriter or I'm an artist. And the next day, Cole Swindell called and he said, "Hey man, you have my next single that you wrote." And right then, I told my wife, I said, "I'm beside myself if this is not my sign." And I took that as my sign. And because we all pray for signs of how we, not how we think our life is good. We all pray for signs of how we want God's will to be done in our lives. And God's will that day on November, whatever day I just said, that was God's will. And that's where I took the sign and went with it. That was where I've not stepped another foot on stage with a band because God wants me to be a songwriter.
That's an awesome story. It doesn't get much louder than that, man. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's some people that accept the sign, and then there's some people that let egos get in the way of the sign. And I did not want to be that person.
yeah, I can see where you're coming from. You get, an aspiring artist and songwriter, and they're just gripping hold to the idea of being on stage in the bright lights when maybe that's not your purpose and your call.
Yeah. Yep.
What song was that with Cole?
It was called Stay Downtown.
Okay, yeah.
And it went all the way to number 26. So it's not like it was a hit song. It was just God's sign to me to be like, hey, shut this down.
Yeah. Something's cooking here. Let's focus on this.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the conversation is going back to Cole Swindell, but it's so funny. When I was in college, we went to see Luke Bryan at the Georgia Theater. This is back before we saw him back with his band before he was Luke Bryan, back when he was at Southern playing with the guys from back home. We saw him in Milledgeville. We saw him here and all that. But Cole Swindell would come out. He was his merch guy and would come out and play a few songs, just the opener before the opener. You know what I mean? And I'll never forget that because he had shaggy hair and a backwards hat. It looked totally different. He's kind of I don't know if husky's the right word, but it didn't look the same, But I remember thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, that was Cole Swindell.
Yep.
And then sure enough, there's this.
I don't remember him then.
Yeah, well, Luke talks about it in his documentary. I think it's on Prime. There's I think it's called Dirt Road Diaries.
Yeah.
And they actually showed that show at the theater, and they're like scanning the audience. I can actually find myself in the freeze frame, but they mentioned that story about Cole just begging, not begging, but just coming around and kind of like you mentioned of just putting in the work and being visible, and he would go on the bus with Luke, I guess, and Luke gave him a shot, but he was pursuing it. You know what I'm saying? It's not like it's just. Yeah, he was up there grinding, man. So I just always thought that was cool thinking back. And back when we saw, this would have been when Stepping on Fire for You was hitting, but Florida Georgia Line was explode. They are exploding at the time when we saw him at the theater. And the opener for him was Sam Hunt. And Sam Hunt was playing like Cop Car. And what was the song? Billy Currington, We Are Tonight, when just come out.
We Are Tonight.
Yes. And that was just so cool because, you could feel the energy. Say what you want about Florida Georgia Line, and I think they're super catchy and had some great hits, but that first album was just so stacked. And I think that's pretty much what they played the whole night. They played like that front to back, that whole album. But you could just feel the energy because everybody knew the words. And you could just see that they were about to just take off. And sure enough, there were multiple number ones off that first album, yours included. But it's been so cool over time to see just the people that have come through these towns like Valdosta and Statesboro and Athens. And our friend Bradley Jordan, I feel like he's probably had his hands in all those shows now that I've gotten to know him. And I know he's a good friend of yours, but he's a promoter for the people listening that don't know. If you've been to a country music show at some of these venues, you've definitely been to a Bradley Jordan show with Peachtree Entertainment. Yeah. But man, I mean, we were just so spoiled. You know, it'd be like Zach Brown on like a Wednesday night, Brantley Gilbert on a Thursday night, and then like Jason Aldean would be coming through the theater. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And then a little bit further down the line, I mean, Morgan Wallen was playing the 40 watt. I mean, I saw Hardy at the 40 watt. It's just, if you know kind of if you follow country music, you can kind of hit it right, and you can kind of, if you're any good at, I guess, a feel for talent, you can kind of know who's about to explode, and you can kind of feel the energy, and you can kind of see them. I saw Ashley McBride. There was barely anybody there at the 40 watt. And I feel like you mentioned about artists reaching back and pulling other artists up. And I think for her, it was like Eric Church had her out to play a Bible in a 44, and all of a sudden people were talking about her. But it kind of takes some of the people that have made it to say, hey, come on stage. Or, you know, they're promoting your music. They're promoting you. They know that's how good you are. And I think like Luke and Cole have done that for you in the sense that they know how good you are. And they've kind of shared, kind of helped you because you've been there working hard and putting in your work. And I think that speaks to volumes about your career, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, buddy.
Yeah, man.
You mentioned earlier a couple of other guys' names that you work with in writing. I can't remember their names, but you mentioned it earlier in the podcast. How did you come across those guys? Are those people you met when you moved, or?
Man, it was just being in the community of Nashville. The songwriting community it's a small town. So you meet somebody, say, hey, let's write. You just become friends. So anybody I mentioned was because of the community of Nashville.
Yeah. Seems like there's a lot of support within that community.
It's very small town. The songwriting community. It's very, hey, I got your back, you get mine. And if you win, congratulations. If I win, they congratulate me.
Yeah. How hard is it to find your group? I mean, you mentioned some of the names and people that you're closer with, but finding the guys that you write on a weekly basis with or a monthly basis with, it kind of, you carve out time for them, they carve out time for you. How hard is it to find that click?
It's a little bit of both. So we have our people, but then we all know that we have to write with so-and-so to get this cut. So we try to write with each other as much as we can, but then all of us know that we're all trying to get songs to number one. So whatever we have to do that. It's not like there's not one group that's writing all the number one country music.
Yeah. Yeah. If you will, tell us a little bit about the pitch process. How much of that is you versus your publishing company? And I mean, when you get a demo, do you send it yourself to the artist? How does that work? And also tell us what a hold is. What does that mean if the artist has that on hold?
All right, so I'll start with the hold process. The hold is an artist hears a song and they say, hey, I want to hold this. That means we have a handshake deal. You're good for this song. We want you to cut it. We won't send it to anybody else. And then the first part of your question was, how do we get other artists, correct?
Yeah, just pitching it. The pitching process, is that more the publisher or you?
Yeah, well, the publishers are a great process to go by. They so me as a songwriter, I turn a song into the publisher, my publisher, and they say, "Hey, this sounds good for X." I'll send it to them. But then my theory is squeaky wheel gets the oil. So I'll send it to whoever I think, and I'll take 10 no's to get 1 yes. And I'll just send songs to Dustin, Cole, Jake, whoever I need to send it to get 1 yes. And that's what a songwriter's dream is. Like, all you want is one person to believe in your song.
When you get like going back to the hold process, if you have a song placed on hold, is there any sort of guarantee on the songwriter's end? Like, or is it like, is it a total leap of faith? Like, if they
All a handshake deal.
really, yeah,
Yeah.
And
Unfortunately, and I've seen both sides of that deal.
yeah,
what's got to be so interesting about the songwriter game is, some of these. Let's say you get a. Let's just use Rascal Flatts and Jason Aldean as examples. Anybody that gets a cut with those guys, you're probably thinking, man, this is great. This is a great thing. I got a cut with Rascal Flatts or Jason Aldean, whatever. Turns out, it might be your best work to date, but it doesn't end up being a single. How do you manage that? Whereas something that's a great song, maybe for another artist, might have gone all the way to the top. So how do you manage
out of
that?
our control.
Yeah.
After they cut it, it's just out of, I don't know. It's in God's hands after they cut it for us, and it sucks. I mean, there's no way to control it, but
Yeah, there's a couple of Aldean songs that come to mind for you. I thought the same way, had a shot. I thought, I was just getting started, a single, or was that just one that was
getting warmed up?
Oh yeah, my bad. There is another song that's like, is that it?
Yep.
Okay, there's two different songs, but yeah, I know, that's what I was talking about with your song. But I mean, was that a single or was that Aldean cut?
It was an SEC song, but
oh, okay, that's what it was. Well, that's probably good from a songwriter's perspective of that product placement of having it consistently on TV every week. I'm sure you take that every time. It seems like Fall Out Boy's made a career out of making every time you turn on a sports thing, it seems like it's Fall Out Boy or something. Man, it's so interesting. How did you? We touched on it, but talk a little bit about your 4-wheel drive days and your relationship with another guy that was on this podcast, Derek Chitwood. I've got to mention him because literally everybody we've talked to on the podcast, I feel like, has been connected to Chitwood, and so we have to bring that up as a tradition almost at this point. How do you know Derek, and talk a little bit about the partnership you did with them?
I met Chitwood through Bradley Jordan.
Okay.
I think I'm right. But then the 4-wheel drive days were unbelievable. Just me, Jordan, Travis, and John, just not knowing what life was and just living. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. Have you been involved in that night, Georgia night in Nashville, the Peach State?
Yes.
Okay. Talk a little bit about that at the Ryman and that tradition and
what the Peach Pickers had going on was they would invite Georgia artists up to Nashville to raise money for Georgia, for the Georgia Music Foundation. And those nights, I started it when they were at 3rd and Lindley, which was a small club. There was Aldean, Luke, FGL. Everybody was. It was unbelievable. And it grew to the Ryman. And then we had our 4-wheel drive that started. We played there. And just unbelievable memories. The governor would be there. And gosh, just unbelievable. You just took me down memory lane that I didn't know I knew.
Well, the reason I brought up 4-wheel drive is because I'm a drummer. When my arms work, I can play the drums actually. And in high school we had middle school and high school we had a band, and you know what our name was? 4-wheel drive. So I told Chitwood, I was like, we have IP on that, man. We could see you guys. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. It's a great name. And
well, 4-wheel drive was Bradley Jordan's idea.
Oh, really? Yeah,
So he used to do this thing with, I think it was Cole Swindell, Michael Carter, Craig King, and somebody else. But he had a foursome that would play in Atlanta. I cannot remember what they were called. But he told us, he was like, hey, replicate that, make it, and call it 4-wheel drive.
How old were y'all when y'all were doing this?
Oh, shit. 20, 21.
Oh, man. I love it. Not a care in the world.
Not one.
Yeah, you mentioned Craig Campbell, man. Outskirts of Heaven's like one of my favorite songs all time. I mean, that's up there for me. Man, what else you got for Cole? You got anything else for you?
Man, I really enjoyed it. I
got something.
Go for it.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about, I don't know if you call it a side hustle, your main business, the hat you're wearing made me think of it. But tell us a little bit about your company and what y'all do with golf.
And so it's called Playing Through. No G, just playing. And we just like to go to country clubs, very good golf courses, play music, play golf, raise a little money for charity, and that's about it. And this is our logo.
It's a good looking logo. Did you say that Vivi, I think, mentioned it earlier? You played this morning?
I did.
How'd you hit them?
4 over.
Dang. All right. Well, that ends my conversation on golf. I was about to talk golf with you, but I'm nowhere near 4 over.
Well, quick story.
I'm right.
I had some friends that. Oh yeah, there he goes.
Love it.
Some of my friends set this up. I can't take any credit, and I obviously stayed in the cart. But they lined it up for us to play Sage. This was back in when was that? It was last fall, October or November. And my buddy Tucker, who you actually played at his house, played at our birthday party last year, so I appreciate that. But he sent you. He's like, man, I'm gonna text Cole because there was a guitar in the locker room that had your signature. I think it's Chase Rice, Cole Swindell. And y'all played the event down there. But it was hilarious. I never would have guessed this, but you responded like, I'm on my way there now. And we were like, what? And sure enough, you were playing an event down there. It's literally the same night. We ended up hanging out. So what was that event for that you were, one, you do something at Sage every year. And then two, what was the event down there with your...
When you guys were there, that was for Jim Furick's event, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So we always go down there. That's kind of where Playing Through started.
Okay.
Where we realized people wanted riders round type stuff at country clubs. And that place is unbelievable.
Yeah, I haven't played a lot of top 100 courses, as you can imagine. You probably have, but yeah, I can imagine. I can't imagine it being much nicer than what they got going on.
Yeah, that's about as good as you
And the food was just unbelievable. If you ever get a chance to go, I would definitely encourage that. But we got to talk to Fluff that night. I'm sure you did as well. But Fluff was he was just about. He was telling us about some stories. You know, Tiger Woods caddy.
Yeah.
So he was about to. He was telling us about all the guys he worked with, and he was just about to. I think Fluff had him a couple cocktails and was about to get to the Tiger years, and we got interrupted somehow. Somebody came up and I don't know, pulled Fluff away from us, like, we just got blindsided. We were all like, man, we were just about to get to the good stuff, and here's some good Tiger stories from the one and only Fluff, the caddy. Man, it was a missed opportunity, but it's still a good story nonetheless. And the par 3 course is really cool there, and it was just fun, man. It was a good group of friends. I know you were there with Bradley.
Yeah.
So good people, and close to home for us. We're both from Augusta.
Love it.
So that's right across the river for us. And yeah, man. So it's cool to see what y'all are doing with playing through. And man, let's go ahead and jump to the game. Daniel, you introduced the game. This is your idea.
Yeah, I mean,
Here's my little one.
Hey, yeah, come on in. Hey, you play the game. He might have some favorites. Hey, bud.
hey, bud, what's your name?
What's up? All right, what's our game?
Well, I mean, more than anything, we can participate if you want, baby, but I really just want to hear from you.
Yeah, we'll chime in with our feedback, but you go ahead and give us your
Mount Rushmore of country music influences.
Mount Rushmore of country music influences.
Your personal, yeah. This doesn't have to be all the time. You can throw somebody in there that maybe not be in the gross sales or something, but your personal favorite.
All right. In order?
I don't think order matters unless you want it to matter, unless you've got a clear-cut number one, just your top 4.
Don Williams, Alan Jackson, Garth Brooks, and George Strait.
All right, I love that. Love the George Strait. Tell us a little about the first name you mentioned, because that's the only one I wasn't too familiar with.
Don Williams. Don Williams. If you don't know Don Williams music, it's like your granddad speaking to you every night. Good Old Boys Like Me is just one of my favorite songs. And you put that on, you drink a little whiskey, it's the best song there is.
So he's part of that whole, like, the OG country music guys.
Yes.
Nice.
Man, I guess for me, it's hard to argue with that group. Garth would certainly be in there for me, not just because of his hits, but some of his B cuts that he had, on albums like Rep in the Wind and The Chase and Pieces. Yeah. All the B cuts were really like the stuff that weren't singles. He was getting all those great songs. That was our childhood.
Yeah.
But some others that for me are in there for my Mount Rushmore would be groups like Diamond Rio, Shenandoah, and Brooks and Dunn. For me,
Brooks and Dunn for sure.
Yeah, I mean those guys, in the '90s, to me, just that sound is our childhood, right? I think that's all we can all empathize with that sentiment of just growing up in South Georgia and just hearing those songs. I grew up in Thomasville before I moved to Augusta, but that's my childhood right there is those guys, and
I love it.
Those particular the sound that they captured, the style that they captured, I think is
well, that's what made us.
Yeah.
That's what made me a songwriter.
Mm.
I agree with all the folks y'all said. I would have said Brooks and Dunn as well, BB, and then my all-time favorites, George Strait. And if I had to throw in a couple of contemporary guys like newer, I love Eric Church and Aldean. I mean, I love Jason Aldean. I think that guy crushes.
Aldean's band, I love his band. Like his drummer is just an animal, man. Just they're just such a beast performing live, and I feel like that rock is kind of hitting right now. A lot of the blending country with elements of rock, and Eric Church, his live show, same thing. I mean, Driver Williams, his guitar player is just shredding. And it's straight rock, look at what Hardy's doing. I think there's an appetite for that, but there's not really traditional rock and roll right now in the pop mainstream. So naturally, country's kind of brought in some of these different factions, and probably gets people listening to country that otherwise wouldn't. But you still have some guys like Justin Moore, your guy with the number one, or like John Party or Luke Holmes, or you still got these throwback elements happening that are kind of paying respects to the 90s glory dates too. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. Not everything's great, but there's really good stuff going on, and you're a huge part of it. And that's why we were just excited to talk to you, and feel like I learned something from you every time I talk to you. And we'll certainly be tracking and pulling for you, man.
Hey, I love you, boys. Thank you guys for having me on this. It's unbelievable.
You gonna come to any Georgia games this fall?
Hopefully, Ole Miss.
Okay. All right, keep me posted, and we'll see you then, man.
All right, God bless you guys.
Enjoy your family, and congrats on the number one.
Congrats, man.
Cheers, boys.
Sick.
Love you.